let's get to the game at hand. Let's see, Cantrip, designed by Misha Panarin and art by Celeste Cruz. So first of all, very different vibe right here. We've got a lot more colorful, playful fairies. Art-wise, we've got a very big vibe shift from our previous game, right? This seems a lot more colorful, a lot more lighthearted, a lot more fun. Let's go ahead and check the back cover first before we dive in properly. This game has a lot of very colorful, pretty art, which I'm looking forward to discovering as we go in. Cantrip is a fun and emotional game about young witches and their adventures. When playing it, the familiar witch school tropes will warmly welcome you while guiding you through a much more original fantasy world. It evokes the nostalgia of anime friendships, the enhanced drama of high school movies, the bite of fantasy novels, and the cultural significance of witchcraft. It combines all of this seamlessly and presents a dreamlike canvas over which to create your own take on the witchy world. From one of the playtesters. Nice. If only I could get my own feedback published as a playtester on the back of a game. But considering that so much of my feedback seems to be, fix the gunslinger, I don't think the folks from our previous game would print that on the back. Fix the goddamn gunslinger, Dan, playtester. Except I haven't even playtested. I'm not even just Dan, asshole. Anyway, let's actually crack this one open. Okay, so you got some credits at the beginning, beautiful. Let's just give actual credits to the people that we've got. So game designed by Misha Panarin, art by Celeste Cruz, editing by Pam Punzalan, and layout by Francita Soto. I'm seeing a lot of Latin American games here. I like this. Cantrip is based on the Belonging Outside Belonging framework. First seen on Dream Apart by Benjamin Rosenbaum and Dream Askew by Avery Adler, and on Powered by the Apocalypse by Megway and Vincent Baker. So this is a PBTA game. Those of you who know me or have known me from my previous work, look at me. Well, yes, from my previous work, from the podcast, from Fandible, you may know that we have had a history with Played by the Apocalypse games. We've not had the best of experiences. Thank you, Struggle Buzz, by the way, honorary mod, honestly, for sharing the link out. We have not had the best experience with Powered by the Apocalypse games. I hope they fix that in a present or future version of Dungeon World. Dungeon World is my Necronomicon. I fear that if I ever touch that book, it will destroy what's left of my friendships. That said, we have had some better experiences with Powered by the Apocalypse in more recent memory. So I am not holding that against this game. I finally understand a little bit more. Anyway, I'm not going to hold Powered by the Apocalypse against it. On the contrary, now that I understand a bit of the philosophy behind it and some of my concerns with how limiting it feels, now I understand that it's very much a very different approach than the more, I guess, traditional D&D World of Darkness-y approach to tabletop RPGs that I have had up until that point, right? So now let's go ahead and take a look at the contents. PBTA is a different feel to games and how it handles conflict resolution. PBTA is a different feel and kind of approach, honestly, to tabletop RPGs that I think for folks like me that are a little bit more old school, without going, like, it's weird because I am a little old school in that the bulk of my experience was, old school, like second edition, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, AD&D second edition. I still have the 4.0 books, and I will go to my grave saying that 4.0 was underrated. 4.0 was a great game. It wasn't D&D. I don't think it was D&D, but it was a good game. I think it gets a lot more hate than it deserves. And then I never really tried 5th Ed. I was never really interested, which is a problem because now that I'm trying to make a living off of this, D&D 5.0, and I guess 2024 now, is the 800,000 pound dragon of the industry. And it's like, but I don't want to do D&D. Anyway, we'll see. I'm going to try and do the most I can with all these NDs because this is where my heart lies now. And let's see. So, table of contents. Okay, so this has a table of contents. Indies, right? So our expectations should be kept manageable. Our expectations need to be managed, right? So there isn't a... Wow, okay, I guess they really did run out of pages because the book ends... This isn't like a cheat sheet. The last thing in the book, all the way up to the back cover, is just content. Cool. There is no room in this book for blank space. I get it. They're doing everything they can with the space they have. I'm sad there isn't an index, but again, this might not be that kind of game. It might not matter as much. I just always like seeing indexes. We don't get enough indexes. Content to see, so what's all this? We'll have our introduction and tone and inspiration. So all of this is very important because this is going to make the promise, right? Like, this is how I approach looking at games. Each game makes you a promise. It presents you with a fantasy. The promise of being a young witch, discovering her powers, and having adventures. I'm assuming it takes inspiration from anime like Witch Hat Atelier, which I really want to check out, and I've heard really good things about. Anyway, point is, it's making you a promise, specifically through the tone, the inspiration, the setting. What is this? Here's hopefully where the game tells you, here's what I'm going to do for you, here's what I'm going to give you. And then does it deliver on the promise, right? Because some games promise really cool things, and then you get to the rules, they don't deliver. They deliver something else entirely. Bringing up the last one we did, it made me a promise about a game where faction building and coalition building and mutual aid and stuff was a central theme. And it delivered on that, both on the theme and on the mechanics, to a level higher than what I even thought it would. That's an excellent example, right? You make a promise and you deliver on that promise. So this is the promise. Hopefully the rest of this is the delivery. We'll see how that goes. So how do we play? Fill your cauldron, learn the principles, gather your coven, make your move. Aspects, PBTA, so moves and aspects, pretty standard. Beginning play, establishing the setting, which we'll look over. Again, we're not going to read out the whole book. I want people to cover stuff on their own, but we want to see these aspects. These look to be the aspects of the town. We'll learn about them. Let's see what this all looks like. Introduction. So this part I actually just read because I like letting the game make you the promise in its own words, especially here. Cantrip is a role-playing game about witches who are coming of age while studying at a magical academy. They will grapple with their place in the world, their emotions, their budding relationships, the expectations placed on them by everyone in their lives, the secrets held by the academy, and the constant scheming of their fellow witches. This game may be different from other role-playing games you've heard about or played, especially if you're coming from stuff like D&D, World of Darkness, or Call of Cthulhu. Hey, that's me. I didn't bring up Call of Cthulhu, but that's me. Hi, hello book, hello game, saying hello to me directly. I appreciate that. Plus, it's just nice to have because PBTA is a different feel, a different approach to games. So I like that here it's being specifically pointed out for the rest of us. Let's see here. Cantrip is a 3 to 5 player game based on the belong and outside belonging system, which focuses on big personalities, evocative descriptions, and complex relationships. That's one thing I want to do a deep dive on, because there's a lot of games based on that system, based on that approach. I want to go back to the roots. I want to do a whole video on belong and outside belonging games, because I don't understand it yet. I can't make that video right now, but I feel like it would be interesting content, right? It'll be something interesting to look into because there's a lot of games out of it. And I want to see where it comes from. I want to see where it's built from. It is designed to excel in a small handful of short 2 to 3 hour sessions. This is merely a guideline. Ultimately, you decide when it makes sense for your story to wrap up. During play, you will take control of a main character, thrust into their first year at the academy, as well as various aspects of the world, whether it's the faculty and staff, their fellow students, or the semi-sentient weave of magic itself. There is no game master. All right, so this is a GM-less game, but there is one player who will take on the role of facilitator. We'll get to that in a bit. Play primarily consists of conversation with your fellow players. Throughout this conversation, you will frame scenes involving 2 or more main characters, with different players taking on the roles of the various aspects that will provide these characters with surprising opportunities, hazards, obstacles, and challenges. I'm wondering, are all belong and outside belonging games like this? I'm just curious. I don't if anybody watching has an answer, great. If not, that's going to be part of my investigation. I don't have a lot of experience with GM-less games, so I'm curious to see how this game presents that. It very much sounds like it is more of a cooperative. You take turns going around the table. One person is the main character. Everybody else is sort of the GM, unless they're also playing a main character. Narrative, a collaborative narrative. All right, so let's go ahead. Play. I already said that. Let's check the next part out. The facilitator, all right, so here's the closest thing to a GM this game has. The facilitator. one of you, usually whoever is the most familiar with the rules, and hopefully after we go through this book, that will be me, will take on the role of facilitator. The facilitator is responsible for gathering the materials needed, helping others learn how to play, and clearing up any doubts about the rules or the limits of what's possible within the game. The facilitator also makes sure that every character is getting enough screen time and that every player is feeling safe and comfortable. These two responsibilities are shared by all players, but the facilitator should be comfortable with taking the lead. Much, maybe most, of the teaching of the game will take place during play as you develop your main characters, the supporting cast, their relationships, and the world they inhabit. As a facilitator, encourage players to ask questions, but don't shy away from asking questions yourself. To be honest with you, this sounds a lot like a GM. These are the roles of a GM. I guess the difference is that you're not... This is everything that a GM that I personally would expect from a GM, minus the also I have to make up the story, right? The plot. All of that will be made up collaboratively together. But other than that, these are the things a GM does. You make rulings, right? It's basically a GM light. The facilitator role, you're still basically the GM. You're just playing a particularly player-generated adventure, and you are yourself one of the players, right? So you get to play, but it's not a GM PC. It's an actual character within the game. But the bulk of this, which is fine, not a complaint. But I mean, I guess they do say. There is no game master, but there's one player take on the role of the facilitator. Yeah, I guess setting that aside, setting that apart is necessary in the sense that otherwise by default someone will try and make a plot, be the GM. So yeah, it's fine that there's a separate role. But that role is basically a GM. I'm curious to see, once I go over other BOB games, Belong Outside Belonging games, if that is a common thread among them. I'm curious. That actually concerns the GM PC trap. We'll need to see what the rest of the games... Right, exactly. I did kind of thought about it. I did kind of think about that. And again, that's why I'm curious whether that's a thing about this game or BOB games in general. If one player is still effectively being a GM, when it's their turn to play their character, there are some pitfalls. A lot of those pitfalls can be mitigated by the simple fact of don't be a dick, right? Be a grown-up. We're all here to have fun, and you don't win at tabletop RPGs unless everybody at the table is having fun. That is how you win at tabletop RPGs. Is everybody at your table having fun? Then you win. Otherwise, no. But I wonder if that is addressed at any point when we're making a character. It's like, hey, the facilitator character, keep this in mind, or something like that, right? So we'll see. All right, and the tone and inspiration. This is important because it's a big part of the promise. You're going to give me images. You're going to give me touchstones, things that I am probably aware of already. This game takes inspiration from a lot of media involving the magical and supernatural coexisting and clashing with a mundane world. Most direct inspiration is Studio Trigger's Little Witch Academia, and you'll find that the playbooks closely resemble many of the characters in that anime. All right, so this one's kind of like the one that I'm going to be looking at soon, Placing Him, which is very inspired by several things, but primarily by Symphogear. So it sounds like this game is primarily inspired by Little Witch Academia, which, to my eternal shame, I have yet to watch properly. The last thing that I saw in that vein was Madoka. Madoka is magical girls, but not specifically witches. I don't remember the last sort of witch-based anime, unless you count Mashal, Magic and Muscles, which, if I went to Hogwarts, I would use physical violence. The magic spells are gonna work on me. Avada these nuts. So that's not the vibe we're going for, I'm guessing here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and take a wild bet here and say that we are not going to find a martial equivalent in this book. There will not be a playbook. There will not be a character type that is just like, I don't have magic, I'm just really buff. I'm going to go ahead and make that guess right now. And if I am wrong at that, I will do penance in some way. You would have thought I was a Hufflepuff. I would have thought that too, but then I was radicalized. And now I am Team Magical. So let's see. Other sources of inspiration include Witch Hat Atelier, which I've heard really good things about. I've heard amazing things about Witch Hat Atelier. The Owl House I've also heard good things about, and I have not seen. The Persona series of video games. So that's a surprising. I wonder where we'll see that influence, because that one I'm very familiar with. I'm a big fan of the Persona games. I wonder what influence that will bring into the game. And Kiki's Delivery Service, which of course, who doesn't love Kiki's Delivery Service? More tangentially, slice of life anime like Yuru Camp and Non Non Biyori provide a lot of the tonal inspiration. Okay, so this is supposed to be a laid-back kind of slice of life moments of play. Cool, I like it, I dig it. Let's see. Cute witch girls learning at their magical academy and having cute witch adventures. Solid promise, I like it. That's why I picked it up, because who doesn't want that in their life? So let's see how it delivers. Mechanically, the game is also based on the belonging outside belonging framework. It's inspired by Apocalypse World and powered by the Apocalypse design philosophy. Speaking of PBTA games, Cantrip borrows heavily from the principles of teen angst and drama it masks the new generation. Big fan of masks. I like masks. I think our game of masks for Fandible went off the rails very quickly. But I have played masks with people who are not Fandible, who are not allergic to PBTA games, and had a wonderful time and seen some incredible stories. So big fan of that one. Let's see. Overall, the tone of Cantrip is meant to be lighthearted. Emotions can flare and fights can happen, but these witches are mostly inclined to stick together and care for each other. The kind of problems they'll face are usually low stakes. Maybe one of them misplaced an important object, or the internet is out in their shared room, or a school play is coming up and they're short one dancer, or a mysterious portal opened right where their classroom was meant to be. When you begin play, decide as a group what overall tone you're going for. Do you want languid, zero-stakes personal adventures of young witches in a weird world? Do you want emotionally charged, mutual explorations of the strange and mysterious? Or maybe you're up for non-stop goofy hijinks. This is a good example of the kinds of games you can run with this, the inspiration and vibe they're going for, the kinds of adventures and tasks and stakes that this is built around. This is meant to be a cozy game. It is a cozy indie game, which sometimes is exactly what you want. I feel like this would probably do great at a con, or maybe if you're running weekly with your friend group, right? Maybe like a month, let's say, hey, October is going to be, instead of like maybe somebody in the friend group wants to do horror month, you can also do just cozy witch month, right? October is coming up. Let's continue. Maybe this is October's game. Although I do have a couple of other spooky ones coming up I'm curious about. Anyway, let's see. So how do we play? Fill the Cauldron. This is just the basics. Rules, paper, 3 to 5 players, one of whom is also the facilitator, and tokens, 4 per player. All right, let's look at the system. Learn the principles. So I feel like we're going to have to read through this pretty closely because we're looking, this is, again, these are the basic principles of the game. This is important to know. Let's see, because while this is explaining the game, explaining the basics of what you're doing here. All right, how to gather your coins, so how to basically set up and do things, cool. How to make moves, so this is basically the rules. Regular moves. Okay, cool. So we're gonna get it. So this is cool. I like this in the sense that we are getting the system, right? We are getting the basic rules up front. I think I mentioned that before. I like knowing that so that then when I get later on in the game, I have a better idea of what those things mean. If a game says roll d6 plus n, I need to know what n is at some point. The sooner you explain what n is, the less upset I'm going to be when I go, what the fuck is n? It says 3d6 plus n, where's n? But if I already know that n means nanomachines or whatever, then hey, cool. Playing Cantrip is a lot like having a conversation. Someone says something, someone else replies. Sometimes this might trigger a mechanical feature of the game, such as a move, but other times the players will simply back and forth having a conversation, either in character or out of character. As you embody your character's playbook and one of their world's aspects, you will describe situations and scenes and what the various characters do or say. You might propose a scene, make a joke, give an impassioned romantic monologue, or interrupt with questions or establish a fact about the world while playing. Tell a story. You can narrate story actions either in the first person or third person. If you're not comfortable acting out of characters every word, describing the gist of what they say is perfectly fine. Getting fully into character and saying something like, "Come here, say that to my face if you think you're strong enough," is just as valid as simply describing your character provoking an enemy and curling her fist into a ball, ready for a physical confrontation. You do you. Make some trouble. While this is a low-stakes game where dire issues always have a satisfying resolution, bitter rivalries often turn to friendship, and in which hope and wonder triumph over gloom and doom almost every time, you do need conflict to drive the plot forward. Your playbook offers some pointers to the kinds of conflicts your main character might face, and aspects offer no end of possible complications. Additionally, when you circle 3 things which are in conflict at the Academy, you are signaling that you want these issues to come up often and be a constant source of narrative tension in your life. So I'm guessing that is a step that we will do later. The only thing I would ask here in a better world is a page link, wherever this is defined. I'm that kind of player. The moment I see something that is capitalized and bolded, and from the context sounds like it's a game mechanic, I mean, sure, this feels very self-explanatory. Circle 3 things which are in conflict with the Academy, but when does this actually happen? You're telling me that when this happens, cool, that's what that means. But I feel like that would be in this definition. It's, again, being nitpicky. Otherwise, though, I get from context what this means. Just being nitpicky. In a perfect world. So here's the design difference, right? The design/philosophy difference that I see in Powered by the Apocalypse games. In other games, you come up on a situation, and in order to take action on that situation, you look at your character and what they can do. Like, you look at your character, what's on your character sheet is like their powers, their abilities. And that's how you kind of decide what you're going to do in the scene. There are bonuses and minuses to that. I actually saw a really interesting video this morning from, was it Dungeon Builder, Bob? Or Bob something Builder. Anyway, he mentioned how having defined skills can sometimes be a little limited, because it can lead to players thinking that if they don't have the skill for a specific thing, then there's nothing they can do in a specific scene. And I think that was the problem we ran into when playing Powered by the Apocalypse games. We kept looking at our character sheets, trying to figure out what we could do in any given situation. So we were approaching in-game problems, in-game situations. Oh, hey, there is a bad guy here, or there is this obstacle or this thing, and looking at our character sheets going, okay, what's my skill for talking to bad guys or punching bad guys or flying over fire? We're looking for those things in our character sheets. But Powered by the Apocalypse moves are less specific abilities and more mechanical features. The idea is that when you're playing a certain type of character, a certain playbook of character, you play out the actions of what that character would do given the situation. Hey, no worries, Himang. Thank you so much. No idea what you're doing, but looks like you love it, so best of luck. Thanks so much. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I do, in fact, love it, so your assessment is correct. We are literally talking about indie tabletop RPGs. I'm just reading through them, giving my opinions on the design for later, full-on, condensed, proper reviews is what I'm hoping to do here. But either way, I love what I'm doing. Thank you so much for noticing that, buddy. Let's go back to this. Point is, in these kinds of games, you just say what you're doing. You say what you think your character would do. It's less important for them to have that specific thing listed on the character sheet. You already know what you can do. Your character sheet does kind of list your abilities, but that's not what you're looking for. You just react. Certain ways of acting will trigger moves. Mechanically, something will happen in the game, but reactions are meant to be the mechanics react to the characters, rather to the characters' actions, rather than the player reacting to the game with mechanics, if that makes any kind of sense. Let's continue looking at the game and see what we do here. Gather your coven. Okay, so this is how we start. This is the description of how we will set up the game once we have players. Facilitator should read out the description for each playbook and let the players choose which one speaks to them the most. So a vibes-based character generation, or which one they think they could embody the best in order to tell a fascinating story of academic hijinks, wondrous magic, and high emotional stakes. Once everyone has chosen, go down the sheet circling choices as prompted. You should talk about your choices as you go. Character creation in Cantrip is a collaborative process, a team effort. Boldly express any cool ideas you come up with, ask questions of your fellow players, try to find narrative connections between the different playbooks. Cool. My concern, it's just like they do explain earlier on that, hey, this, and I think they actually do a decent job of making it clear that this is not D&D, right? Because in D&D, even though there is some encouragement to make your characters together, let's face it, you sit down with the books, you make your character, and then maybe there's a step, depending on your GM, you create connections to the rest of the group, or otherwise they're just kind of assumed as you walk into a tavern. Here it's very much spelled out that you're doing this as a group. You're not just creating just your own little witch, you are creating a witch group. You're creating this world, you're creating the story together. There is no GM. Nobody's coming in with a plot that everybody else is going to follow. You're going to create that as you go and as a group. So again, very different approach to the standard D&D. I like it, and very much sounds like that is the approach from the way they're talking, especially here with the inspirations. It sounds like that is what belonging outside belonging games generally do. The more you learn about the approach, the better. Collaborative character creation, cool. Now, aspects should be dealt out randomly, with each player reading aloud the description for their aspect. If there are more aspects than there are players, then the facilitator should hold on to the aspects for now. Each player can only ever hold one aspect, except the facilitator, who continues to sound a lot like a GM. Each player can only ever hold one aspect. The ones that are not in play may become relevant during other parts of your story, so it's important that everyone knows they exist and what their basic premise is. Talk about the aspects one by one, then come to a consensus of which options you will circle when you're prompted to do so. There's also a collaborative process. Help make the world of Cantrip a unique experience for your group. Keep your characters in mind as you do this. You are not limited by the options on the sheets. If none of the options speak to you, or if you have a cool idea that is not on the sheet, let your group know. If everyone else is cool with it, pencil it in. Once all the aspects sheets have been filled out, if the facilitator currently holds more than one aspect, they should keep only one and leave the rest in the middle of the table within easy reach of all players. You'll be switching out your aspects a lot. So in reach of all players, I'm guessing other players can pick up other aspects, but they say you can only ever hold one aspect. So I'm guessing it's just a facilitator, so why does everyone else need access to it? Maybe we'll get an explanation as we go on. Let's see how that goes. Make your move. All right. So just what I was saying, right? In Cantrip, the fiction comes first, with mechanics following the fiction. You are, above all, telling a story together. The actions you take, the words you speak, the decisions you make should serve the narrative you are developing together. Don't keep secrets, and don't be afraid of speaking out of character to say what you want to happen. I'd really like my character to sneak out of her room to go flying on her broomstick is encouraged. It also lets your friends come up with ways to make it happen that involve other characters. So again, that explanation of like, don't worry about what's on your sheet, just say what you want to do. We'll refer to see if that triggers something, but otherwise we're just telling a story here. A move is something your character does that is important to them and their identity. The core mechanics of Cantrip are the strong, regular, and weak moves. If a certain kind of action isn't listed as one of your character's moves, that doesn't mean you can't do it. The moves are there to guide you, not to limit or constrain you, which was the problem my group originally ran into, that we thought the moves were there to constrain you, were there like, these are the things I can do. I think it may depend on the Powered by the Apocalypse game, because I've seen some PBTA games that do seem to treat moves as more standard abilities. And that confuses things. That's not the approach you want to take with this kind of game, I think. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there's different. Each one is different. Like just because it's PBTA is a vibe, honestly. You know, each game takes its own twist on it, which is the whole point. What makes one PBTA game tick may be completely different from another. But the spirit of PBTA is that fiction comes first, narrative triggering moves rather than moves triggering narrative. This one seems to be sticking to that original intention, which I appreciate. Moves represent broad descriptions and are thus open to interpretation. Feel free to stretch your definitions and twist them to suit your needs. For example, the Starstruck's move, Upend the Status Quo, might be taken literally if she is rebelling against the deeply entrenched and conservative witch aristocracy, but it might also be interpreted more obliquely, like her getting a position as an assistant teacher despite only, quote-unquote, being a student. The Posh's quote-unquote open a door could literally slide the bolt on a door, or it could more allegorically allow her to gain an invitation to an exclusive event, or make a spot magically open up in the club she wants to join. Some moves will ask you to either use or gain tokens when you make them. When you gain a token, take one from the central pile and put it in front of you. When you spend the token, return it to the central pile. You spend tokens to do cool things and gain tokens when you leave yourself vulnerable. Everyone starts with 0 tokens. Cool. So let's see how those mechanics work out. Okay, so we've got the 3 kinds of moves: regular, strong, and weak. Regular moves represent your character's most common everyday pursuits, attitudes, and behaviors. When you're not sure what your character would do in a given situation, look at your regular moves. Even the most mundane activity can easily be disrupted by another player making an aspect move. Perhaps the Hedge is foraging for mushrooms, as she often does, and stumbles into the monsters from the down below, planning a prank. Maybe she messes up a magic circle in the forest, unleashing some danger onto the academy. Be weird, be clever, be imaginative, be surprising. All right, I guess we'll see some of these moves as we look at the playbooks and aspects. Strong moves represent your character at their best, showcasing their power, fulfilling their potential, being totally in control of themselves, rising above any obstacles. Strong moves typically indicate the climax of a scene or an important turning point, which is why they cost a token to use. Interesting. All right, again, once we see some examples, we'll get a better image, or a better, clearer image, rather. And then weak moves. Weak moves are the opposite of strong moves. They represent your character in danger, vulnerable, or overwhelmed, whether by external hazards or their own emotional turmoil. Weak moves allow their enemies' plans to advance, traps to be sprung, or luck to turn against you. When you use these, you gain a token. When another player makes a weak move, don't be afraid to make the consequences dire and immediate. They help create conflict and tension for scenes. Go hard against your fellow witches because they're way stronger than anyone realizes. They shine brightest when they're under pressure. That's going to be hard. I guess it's on the facilitator to encourage this. If I was playing this with Dave and Jesus, and we're all magical little witches, they would take this, go hard against your fellow witch. Oh yeah, no, they would take every opportunity to fuck you over given the chance, especially in this kind of game. Dave would just assume this is a game of fiasco. You'll notice that all witches have a weak move that allows them to establish a fact about some wider, larger aspect of the world in order to gain a token. Be as creative and out there as you want here. The magical world is inherently weird and fantastical. Interesting. Okay, so there's a move that, not quite PvP, but close. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're telling stories, right? But it's also like there's going to be an aspect of just fuck with your friends to that, which, encouraged, honestly. Additionally, most witches can cast any spell they know as a regular move. This begs the question, how does a witch learn new spells? In Cantrip, you learn a new spell by spending a token with the move Cast a Previously Unrevealed Spell. Pick from your playbooks list or make something up on the spot and write it down so you'll remember that from now on that spell can be cast as a regular move at no cost. Interesting. This is basically character advancement. You can spend tokens to gain new spells, in addition to using them to make strong moves. Once we get to a couple of playbooks, we'll see what that looks like. Once again, moves are there to inspire you, not limit you. Thanks for the reminder. Character will take an action that seems like it should gain you a token because you're putting yourself in immense danger. Maybe you'd spend a token because you're showcasing your power and potential, then treat it as a move as long as the group agrees. Cool. If you're having trouble figuring out how to insert your character into a scene you find interesting, remember these 2 things. 1, you can always just kick a door open and make a grand entrance, or arrive in the nick of time for some thrilling heroics. 2, you can always explore the scene and ask questions. This lets other players add details, characters, and situations to a scene based on your questions. Remember, it's a conversation, which might get your creative juices flowing. All right, now we have the aspects. When you have picked up an aspect, you are momentarily in charge of embodying that aspect and describing how it manifests in the world at large and how it involves itself in the current scene in particular. Not all aspects need to be present at all times. For example, you'd be unlikely to find a lot of adults if you're wandering around the forest or delving into some hidden chamber of the academy. Familiarize yourself with the pick up when statement atop your aspect sheet. It lists reasons to start actively playing your aspect rather than your character. If playing your aspect is difficult, something that might happen if you're playing a character in the same scene, you can always trade it away. Either swap with a spare aspect in the center or another player's currently held aspect. You will always have exactly one aspect in front of you. So you only ever embody one aspect at a time. There's only ever one in front of you, but you can swap them out. Aspects are both proactive and reactive. Academy life is full of surprises, and there are plenty of challenges for young witches to overcome. Discuss some way to cause trouble for the witches with an aspect move. Be as creative and weird as you want. We are literally dealing with magic here, so your imagination and whatever you as a group have established about the world are the only real limits you have. Not every scene needs an aspect in play in order to shake things up. Sometimes a witch bearing her heart to another is compelling enough on its own. When moments like that happen, let the players involved lean into that. Trust them to create a memorable, touching scene. Foster an environment where everyone feels safe, empowered, and confident about asking for things. Would you be all right with someone interrupting you right as you're finishing your big monologue? So, yes, don't be a dick. Be kind of... All right. So now we play. Play happens in turns, going clockwise, or sunwise, as the witches would call it, around the table. When it's your turn, you may do one of three things. Okay, so every time when you go around the table, it's my turn. Hey, Dan, you, 47-year-old man, playing an adorable preteen witch, discovering her magical powers for the first time, which is a perfectly normal and valid way for you to spend your free time, Dan. Do one of these three things. Narrate a slice of life, frame a major scene, or get a read on the academy. Remind Linda to do her part of the enchantments presentation. Cool. So these are the three things I, Dan, middle-aged man playing a young witch, can do. Let's say I sit there and I wonder, should I narrate a slice of life? That is a way to catch your breath or decompress after a particularly intense sequence. Text your depth and richness to your character by narrating their day-to-day life, or a small interaction with another main character or supporting character. If you're paying a friend a visit, cramming for an exam, going into town to shop for supplies, or just winding down, you probably want to narrate a slice of life. Playbook and aspect moves may be used here by anyone, as long as it makes sense. Maybe that's what I want to do, but what if instead I think to myself, wait, maybe I'd like to frame a major scene, and apparently that's a whole process. Big decision that Dan here has to make, right? Framing a major scene. It's the most important part of the three, which I guess is why it gets 4 pages. It's what drives the narrative and lets the witches shine as characters and as people. This is where you use the majority of your playbook and aspect moves. You should aim for about half your turns being used to frame a major scene. Major scenes can be short, decisive moments like a tense negotiation with the student council or making a quick escape from the forest, or longer, more elaborate sequences, organizing and preparing the harvest festival while figuring out who is sabotaging your efforts. When you frame a major scene, you should pose a tightly focused question to the group that establishes the stakes and main conflict. Can we find the ingredients for this potion before time runs out? What is that weird noise coming from the bell tower? Framing scenes in this way allows you to begin in media res and cut right to the action. You can always flash back to preparations or retcon something that happened off screen. All right, solid. This is your standard action scene. I get it. So you got your basic super low stakes, a slice of life. Then major scene is action. Something is happening. Something important. Plot is probably moving forward. We'll see what Gettery on the Academy reads, but got some guidance here on how to run a major scene. You need at least 2 major players. Doesn't have to, 2 main characters. Doesn't have to be your character, but remember to check in with your fellow players first. Consider the following things. Where are you? And give some examples. So classroom, academy grounds, town, swamp, etc. This is basically, it's good advice. This is basic scene description stuff. which is good to give to the players as a GM. This is standard. Of course, I'm setting a scene, right? But to the players who are used to sitting down and only narrating their one character's actions, and the GM is the one that sets the scene, this is a good reminder. Every player will be doing this. I like that. Again, at first I was about to say, like, why do you need to? This is the basics. This is describe the scene. It's for the players here are everybody is a GM effectively, so it's important to spell this out. This is why it gets 4 pages, because it's a GM section in addition to just being what an action is. You should open the scene by making a move with your character. If you don't know what to do, ask another participating player to make one, or let the player holding an aspect make a move. In a major scene, you play to find out what happens. So that's not a move that's bolded, but it's a major concept. I think it's one of the big differentiators. This is not so much about PBTA. I think it's more of a game approach, right? A way to approach tabletop RPGs. You play to find out what happens. A PBTA, GM-less, more freeform, more improv-y kind of approach. That whole play to find out what happens. Because it is like, no, there is no answer. You play and you figure it out. I like that. Players, exactly, you're just setting a scene, you're setting the players, but you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how that scene is going to end up. If there was a GM here running this, then they know that this banquet is going to end with an attempt on the king's life, for example, because that's the plot they have. They're going to hopefully pull that off before their players get bored, start a revolution, attack the duke, or sneak off to try and steal the queen's underwear, or whatever your particular group of murder hobos likes to do whenever you throw them into a social scene. Hopefully, it's on the GM to keep them on track to get to that assassination attempt. With this approach, it's no, you set up the banquet, and there's the queen, and there's the duke, and there's the king, and that's it. You've set the scene, and you do it with a move, right? Your character, the one that you've chosen, this is how you go in. The scale of players I just displayed in that short description is wondrously on point. I've run quite a few games in my lifetime. All 3 of those things have happened, sometimes in the same game. That's the difference in approach. You play to find out what happens. You set the scene, and all of those things, especially given the players I've had, may in fact happen. There's less planning. You're playing to find out what happens. You're playing to discover. Players whose main characters aren't in the scene are free to disengage and enjoy the scene. Otherwise, they should keep an eye out for opportunities to insert themselves into it, either as a main character or by playing a supporting character or embodying one of the available aspects. If you notice someone hasn't participated in a while or is having trouble figuring out a way to include themselves into the action, ask them if they'd like to jump in. If they say yes, ask questions to let them establish facts about the scene in order to make it easier for them to do so. Cool. Everybody helps each other. Again, different approach, very collaborative approach to running games. I like it, but it's going to be a big mental shift for people that are unused to it, like it was to my group. Now that I understand it better, I appreciate and like it a lot more. I experienced that dissonance the first time I tried to play. I wonder if that old version of Dungeon World had any kind of explanation like this. Or in classic Fandible fashion, we simply just skipped over that and just looked at the rules and decided to primarily ignore them and tried to play D&D and then got angry. So that may have been our problem with our approach. So let's see. Everyone shares the responsibility for bringing a scene to life. You may step out of your role for brief moments to establish new details and play supporting characters. However, try not to have conversations with yourself. This is also good advice for GMs. I have a bad habit of doing that, and now I actively try and watch myself and keep NPCs talking to one another to a minimum. Sometimes you need to deliver some information, but again, keep it as quick as possible. Try and minimize that. It's generally not a good idea for you to be, for any extended amount of time, playing multiple NPCs talking to one another while the players watch. That's not what they're here for, and it's going to slow things down. It is hard. It's hard work for you as a GM. It's going to be confusing for the players. It's going to be slow. Avoid it as much as possible. Good advice. Let's see. The scene ends when the group agrees it should end. Usually at that point, the witches will have achieved a satisfactory resolution to the question posed at the beginning. But it's fine if there are loose ends or they suffer a massive setback. This can become a thread you can pick up in a future major scene. So that's a major move. So that's basically, it's a scene. It's a standard. This is as close as you get as a standard scene in a tabletop RPG. There's extra information on how to run a scene, but in a more typical game. In a non-PBTA game, very similar to stuff you would just expect to see in a GM section. Here it's spelled out to all the players because there is no GM. Every player is taking that responsibility of setting up a scene, character setting, and the description. I like it. I can see this being intimidating for some players, but it's an opportunity to grow as a player. It's an opportunity for you to take control in this kind of experience. If you who are watching me, and not you, Struggle Bus, because I know you're an old hand at this, but anybody watching this video, either now live, just lurking, or in the future, somehow the algorithm delivered this to you. Here's some basic advice. This kind of stuff here, about setting a scene and description and keeping certain things in mind and keeping other characters in mind and the setting and who's there and all this stuff, it's gonna serve you well as a player as well. If you're used to only describing, I mean, I know some GMs might be slightly resistant to that. I can see some GMs are very old school and don't want you to insert anything into their world that they have not placed, but the bulk of GMs will let you take a certain base level of narrative nudging as you go. Feel free to do that. If anything, always look to your GM and, kind of like check in with them and go like, hey, is it okay if I add this, or if I say that this is here? They might say yes, no, but let's do it this way instead, or they might give you a reasoning why, but at least, don't be afraid to do that. And a lot of indie games, it's actively encouraged. You're meant to be an active part of the story itself, not just the narrative of your character. In my experience, games in which everybody at the table is contributing to the narrative are superior, are just more fun. It's more fun, more creative, more memorable. I'm more invested in them. The players are more invested in them. I think a big part of why PBTA games in general have made such an impression is that shared narrative. There is that investment. People really get into it because it makes you care. All right, let's continue here. Now, the third type of action. We go back, take a few steps back. See, prop dwarfs are wonderful, stunt everything, and if the system allows, always pay the points to do the cool thing. Exactly, that's the thing. I'm a big fan of rule of cool in general. We're here to have fun. There are people whose fun is strict adherence to rules. If that's the case, Pathfinder 2e is out there for you. I'm more of a pure, give me some rules, give me some crunch, that's half the fun. If your system doesn't allow for rule of cool, I'm going to think less of it. This definitely allows for rule of cool. In fact, it encourages it. Big fan of that. So the third type of action, again, taking a couple steps back, we're back in our framing. We're back to Dan, 47-year-old man, playing a apparently pubescent or prepubescent girl. This is going to get me demonetized. And I've thought about Dan here, not me, but this hypothetical Dan, has thought about his first two options. The first, of course, being to narrate a slice of life, or the second option, frame a major scene. Anyway, going back to the framing device, I've thought about those other two moves, and now I'm going like, maybe what I should do is get a read on the Academy. If I were to make that choice, apparently I would step out of the narration proper for a brief moment and get a metaphorical bird's eye view of the entire Academy and its surroundings. And you get to ask a question or make a statement to collaboratively establish a fact regarding the feelings, opinions, issues, beliefs, and values of various communities related to the Academy. So, back to the Academy for these magical pieces. First, choose a topic to either ask a question or make a statement about. Might be something that happened in a previous scene, something that's been foreshadowed or planned, or a wider philosophical point. You can frame it as a question, for example. Should we make contact with the ghosts who now roam the library? Is the student council on the up and up, or are they planning something dangerous? What's the deal with the substitute teacher's hard-ass attitude? It can also be framed as a statement. The ghosts in the library are dangerous. The student council is about to unveil a new scheme that will make our lives more difficult, etc., etc. Then, beginning on your left, each player will express the views that one particular community has on this issue. It might be a general description of a subset of characters, such as third-year students, or a named established faction, such as the Magical Creatures Labor Union and Refoundation. Give a short sentence describing how that group feels about the issue at hand. Keep in mind that the views are always opinions and beliefs rather than facts, and that there are always exceptions among their number. No group is a monolith. During the very first round of play, each player should narrate a slice of life in order to introduce their character to the group and show them in their natural habitat. Approved and appreciated. So, okay, so let's take a step back again now. So we've got three things. You take turns. Again, no GM. So you take turns around the table, and when it's your turn, you choose one of these three things to do. Narrate a slice of life, frame a major scene, get a read on the academy. When you narrate a slice of life, it's a laid-back scene, like a downtime scene in a more traditional RPG. You can still have little adventures, but it's meant to be kind of a downtime scene. This is when you go shopping, you introduce your character, their day-to-day life. Or you do a frame a major scene, which is the more traditional, like we're exploring the haunted library, we're sneaking out of the potions class, trying to get to the mall before it closes to get the new wands that are on sale, whatever. Or the read on the academy, which is more of a step back, almost entirely out of the game. Not entirely out of the game, but definitely out of your character. It's the equivalent of in a TV show or a movie when you do those scenes where none of the major characters are. It's a background scene that establishes something. In this case, it sounds like the main characters are not part of it. You are establishing a thing, or you're making a question about something, right, in the game, or you're making a statement about the game, and then everybody else is going to state what other people, not their characters, but a faction in the game world thinks, their opinion about that. So you're increasing the world building and knowledge of players. I guess that's something you would decide at the table, whether your characters would know these opinions, or whether these is just kind of out of character information for you to use in building scenes and world building. I would personally say the latter. If my character found out that the third year students are all about making contact with the ghosts in the library, she would definitely want to join. So let's play out a scene where she finds that out. My witch would also like that. There we go. That's the next scene, and that would probably be framing a major scene. So that leads to that. I dig it. Now we're establishing the setting for the game. This is the base setting of the game. This part doesn't really change from game to game. This is the core setting. And then after that, you change. I'm going to skim it rather than read the whole thing and then give you the vibes that I get. It looks like, okay, you get to decide what, magic is a rare talent. You get to decide whether the world likes it or doesn't like it, but not everybody has magic. But that's a basic established fact. People come to the academy to train. Witches, especially hundreds of witches, are enrolled in the academy at a given moment. They all live on its grounds throughout the school year. Academy was literally built next to a regular okay, so there's a regular mid-sized town that is not magical. It is just a regular town. The coexistence between them is a little weird but peaceful. The academy has agreed to never erect magical walls or barriers. That is fully integrated with the electricity, gas, water, sanitation. Right, so no magical toilets, regular toilets. Good. Okay, magic exists in many forms, not just spellcraft, but also magical flora, fauna, potions, all sorts of things. Magic is also highly varied, unique, and above all, personal. So everybody has different types of magic. Some witches memorize incantations. Younger witches have learned to express themselves or big personalities with unique forms of magic. Very cool. One notorious ex-student was known to carry spray paint everywhere, allowing her to stencil magical words and sigils wherever she wanted. I love that student. Vibrant and varied witch society at the school. Vast dome-shaped spell covering the school grounds that acts as a universal translator. Diversity also brings some trouble. Traditionalist witches don't care for any generation's more carefree approach to tenets. Tensions built in between the younger and older, more traditional students. The academy has for 1,000 years been inhabited by magical creatures. Goblins, ogres, fairies, ghosts, talking animals, and the like are tasked with keeping everything clean and functional. Nice. Witches are traditionally girls and women, but the newer generations are known for transgressing gender in unexpected ways. They may have more than one gender, or no gender at all, change their gender as often as they change their hat, or have a gender nobody else has. Play around with gender as much as you like and are comfortable with. Good. You want to play a girl? Play a girl. You want to play a boy? Play a boy. You want to play anything else? Play it. Be the witch you want to be. Be the witch you want to see in the world. I like this. I do like lists. So this is the one where we said circle stuff. We're being given options and being told to circle things. I would photocopy this. I don't like writing on my books, but that's just me. So we've got a list of things. You circle one or write your own. Cool. How old are the students? High school and college. Not too many other options there. Nice. I would have liked to see even more options here, but that's just me. Otherwise, this is a good start, and you can bounce off ideas. Draw a map of the academy. That could be fun. Academic calendar. All right. So the school year of the academy has 2 semesters separated by a month-long winter break. Semester is 4 months long. Notably, each month has its own special school event. What follows is the suggested month-by-month school calendar, but you're free to swap, edit, add, and remove items as you see fit. Each monthly event also has seasonal moves available to all the witches only during this time at school. I like that. It shows Month of the Cat, club enrollment, dormant science. So it lets you separate a ongoing game into the various months and seasons, gives you some example events that can happen. Student council could be in elections, harvest festival, and specific things. Like a week moves, everybody will have access to this during that first month. Club enrollment and dorm assignment, everybody can have the week move of spectacularly fail at an audition or tryout. And the straw move of successfully recruiting one of the 5 people you need to form a club. Cool. Same thing with every other month. They all have examples. I like this because they are suggestions. They are things you can do. And again, as always, you can build off of these. But also, here's a structure. Here's one thing I like, right? Here's one thing I like both about this game and games like it. I think what it's doing here is very good. I like when the game gives you just enough crunch, just enough setting to get you going. And also just enough setting that you can depend on it. Because you can sit down and spend hours planning an entire school year, or even just what's going to happen this month. You really shouldn't. You really shouldn't, especially because there's no GM here, right? When you're doing a GM-less game like this, you're going to want to give them some guidance, kind of like we saw in the previous sections where there's a lot of GM-style guidance for players. The fact that this structure is given to you, take it or leave it, but it's there. As you're going around the table, you get to that one player who's like, I don't know, I have no idea what to do. Well, it's the month of the broom. There's an open house. Do you want to do that? Or do you want to take advantage of one of these moves? Have an embarrassing magical accident involving a bunch of dads? Or get some juicy gossip from someone's parents? Like, both of those sound like fun scenes. Let's do one of those. Here's your ideas, but also you don't have to. They're just things that you can do. I like that. It gives you structure if you want it. Having a month-long time skip between each sequence of major scenes and after a particularly strong resolution to a situation could help with the fiction. Let it be a time for wounds to heal and for emotions to build. If at any point you're unsure what kind of conflict to focus on or the kind of scene to frame, draw inspiration from the current month's event. Exactly. Let it be a source of conflict and drama. And here's some more circle visuals, or make up your own. So this is kind of like everybody gets to circle something of like the visuals of the stuff you like in the school. Again, use them as examples if you want, make your own. Okay, so circle 3 things that are in conflict to the academy. Page 42. Circle 3 things which are in conflict with the academy. Parentheses. P dot space 42. This is my pet peeve. This is my white whale. I can't help it. Please. You know which books do this really well? The Numenera books. The Numenera books are real good at that. Just anytime a term is used, here's a link, or even sometimes just a little sidebar definition. I get that you don't have space everywhere for sidebars. Cool. P42. Could have been done. Everybody's going to hate me. All these creators are going to hate me. Because I keep going like, I love your book, and then I get just so pissy about little things like that. Oh well. Anyway, circle 3 things that are in conflict with the academy, or figure out some other conflict. I like this. Let the layout nerd rage flow through me. It does flow through me, as much as I sometimes wish it didn't. Look at that. These examples I like. Barriers to access, source of magical power, integration with non-witch society. These are major themes. But they're good major themes. They set the stage well and give you serious conflict. You can tell darker stories as well, because usually the types of stories that are inspired by this, it's anime, right? At the end of the day, it is going to get dark. Someone's going to die or have something, and then you're going to fight and punch God, most likely. Name the academy. Cool ideas. Playbooks. Let's look at the playbooks. It only took us an hour and a half to go through 44 pages, which is a much better rate than what we did when we first started with our previous game. So I think we're doing well. We might actually get through that. I don't want to jinx it. Let's see how far we get. I will keep you company as I go through these books. The first playbook, we're going to actually go through this one. We'll take some time to learn it, get a feel for it, and then just go by vibes for the rest. The Starstruck. Until recently, you lived a normal life. Then you came by your powers under uncommon circumstances and it changed you forever. Going to the academy was your best choice. This world is new to you. It is wondrous and exciting, but not everyone is happy that you're here. You are called unknowing, someone born without the gift. Do you seek friendship or yearn for seclusion? Play to find out how to inspire your friends, how you succeed despite your limitations, and how you break with tradition. These are, I'm guessing, the themes of your character, the main things that your character is. If you're going to play this, these are the things you're playing to find out. Choose a name and place of origin. Choose a look or make something else. Each character, each playbook will give you a set of options and they'll tell you to choose one or choose two from those. And a lot of the time they're just for looks. They are decorative, a definition of what your character looks like or acts like or sounds like. But at the same time, I remember my first exposure to this kind of thing in a PBTA game felt like, why is this stuff here? Why do I care? Can you just, let me make up, and you can always make up, I mean, this is actually spell list, this actually matters, but also you can make up your own spells. But stuff like this, like the look, and maybe sometimes the relationship. I've seen in other games where it's just like picking your clothes and picking your makeup and stuff. And my first instinct was, why is this here? Why does this matter? Why is this taking up room on my character sheet? I'll just describe what my character looks like when I play them. Now I see it as each playbook is trying to maintain a vibe. And the options presented by playbooks and PBTA are meant to give you a spectrum within that vibe, if you will. It basically was like, here's some options. Here's the kinds of things that you would be expected to see, wear, look like, etc. when you are playing this playbook. This is the kind of character that it is. And you always have the freedom to do whatever you want with them and make it different. The idea is that these aren't just character classes. They are entire vibes. You don't pick a playbook as a character class. You pick a playbook as a character. You are playing the Starstruck. You're not playing Jeff the Cleric. You are not necessarily playing even like, Diana the Starstruck. You are playing the Starstruck Diana, who wears jeans and a t-shirt, or maybe hand-me-down tunic and hat, or maybe traditional garb of your people, or maybe something really out there. It's always, again, you make it yourself. But here's the main options. Here's the usual things based on this that you're going to see. I've grown to appreciate that different approach. And again, that's kind of like the problems that we originally had, and that's why I keep harping on it. This can be a point of friction coming from more traditional RPGs. You're looking at these as character classes, and they are, but also they're those weird hybrids. They're sort of pre-gen characters, like semi-pre-gen, semi-digested, partially pre-digested characters, I think is how I'm going to describe that, because that feels like the kind of description people would appreciate. That's what you want to be fed, partially pre-digested characters. Choose one and only one spell. I wonder if everybody else chooses one and only one. Let me see. Choose two hedge witch. Choose two. Nope. Different witches get. Okay, you still get out like the one thing, but they're different. All right, so I might have to take a closer look at all the characters. They're all unique enough that they're worth taking a look at. I was hoping to get through this book in one stream. Might not happen. We'll see. So a whole bunch of spells. Levitate, project a gush of water, create steam, lock and unlock doors, transmogrify into a teapot, make plants grow, mend a broken thing, mend a broken heart, mute someone, make someone invisible, summon a tiny rain cloud, see through familiar's eyes, soothe or riot emotions, become small, become large, divine, and foretell. So you only choose one of these. Those are all fun. Maybe a normal next stream, but that's okay. Yeah, I mean, I do 3-hour streams where I'm literally just rambling and have an audience of one, but I appreciate the one. Let's see. Choose 2 emotions that completely block your magic. Anger, sadness, hunger, resentment, saudade. Saudade? I've never heard of that. Wait, I gotta look this up. Give me a second. What is saudade? Is that a misspelling or is that an actual emotion? Let's see. Saudade. Saudade is an emotional state of melancholic or profoundly nostalgic longing for a beloved yet absent something or someone. So, yeah, new word, saudade, S-A-U-D-A-D-E. Huh. Yeah, that's definitely a new word. I like it. Okay. It's a new emotion to be sad about. So that could block your magic. Resentment, saudade, joy, apprehension, agitation, love, frustration, heartbreak, dismay, despondency, dejection, and excitement. I like that. There are certain emotions that completely block your magic. I like that little quirk. Choose 2 key relationships. My mother, who is very excited about me being a witch. My sister, who is very jealous of my skills. My roommates, who think I'm curious addition to the dorm. The student council, who distrusts me. The headmistress, the other unknowing at school. The magical creatures who work at the school. The club I joined because it seemed easy. The troublemaker clique. The aristocrat who looks down on me. The magical knick-knack shop clerk who doesn't know any magic. I like all of these potential relationships. Choose a pet or magical tool, or make up your own. An example is raggedy flying broomstick, hat that is bigger on the inside, raven that is only up at night, mouse that moves through the school's plumbing, tarot deck, never emptying teapot, staff that always remains upright, fun stuff. Lure. Whenever someone relies on you to fix a problem by applying your knowledge of the mundane, the mortal, and the everyday, they gain a token. Oh, lure. So that's a reason for other people to bring you into a scene. Because if by using your knowledge of the mundane, it fixes a problem, then they get a token. I like this. I wonder if everybody else gets one. Wait, let me see. Do the other play sheets get a lure? Yeah, okay. I like that. The wording is a bit weird, but it is your lure for other characters, for other players. Here's a built-in lure, a hook, if you will, for bringing my character into a scene. Here's a mechanical reward for that. I dig it. Tips. Okay, so roleplay tips. Explore your kindness and humility. Make your character fallible and relatable. Bite off more than you can chew and embody the mortal world. Questions. Ask one to your left and one to your right. These are the questions for building with your group, because they're questions for the other characters. How did I subvert your expectations of me, and what secret part of the academy did you show me? Cool, so you've got connections. Okay, so your moves, the weak, regular, and strong moves. So when you do one of the weak ones, you gain a token. You do one of the strong moves, you spend a token. You do a regular move, that it's just a regular move. You do them. It is just now hitting me, because I'm a professional. I am doing this for a living now. That there is no, what's the word here? Dice. There's no, the moves just happen. There's no mechanics to this other than the tokens. Weak moves give you a token when you do them. Reject magical solutions. Cause a massive magical misfire or accident. Lose hope. Yeah, and again, you don't choose these normally, right? I mean, you look at them and then you do narrative about them. And that's when the move triggers. Yeah, get out of harm's way. Basically, you can spend the token to stand up for yourself, spend the token to upend the status quo or soothe someone's pain, etc., etc. Just do any of these. So these are... So what happens if you trigger a regular move? Regular moves represent your character's most common everyday pursuits. When you're not sure what your character would do, look at your regular moves. Even the most mundane activity, you're going to be messes up. Okay. Make your move. A move is something that your character does that is important to them and their identity. These moves are things that are define, casting a spell, asking, do you think I'll ever be a witch, take action. These are typical characters that the typical actions that the Star Truck would do. Those will definitely act as inspirations for things to do. This game is very much almost entirely pure storytelling. There's no aspect of randomness here. There's no mechanical effect to triggering a regular move. There's a mechanical effect to these two triggers, but these are just a list of inspirations, effectively. I don't know if I'm missing something, but that's kind of what it feels like. Not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's GM-less already. I will have to look at other BOB games to see if this is typical or the quirk of this game. I'm not sure. Here's my problem with this. If it's presented as a mechanical thing, as a move, as a list of things to choose from, I understand philosophically what they're meant to be. Present broad descriptions, open to interpretation, yes, fine. But this only matters when there's a mechanical effect, because I will get a token, or I will have to spend a token for these moves to actually trigger. Regular moves do nothing mechanically, as far as I can tell. Fine, I guess. But because I was defending the choose a look stuff because it's a narrative thing, and narrative is what triggers the moves, where the mechanics kick in. But now I'm seeing that triggering the moves, a mechanical event, has no real effect mechanically. It can have an effect narratively, fine. You study for an exam, and within the narrative we can have that have an effect. But there was no official mechanical effect in the game itself. And there is a game, there are tokens to keep track of. There is at least some level of strategy where you're gonna want to do weak moves. You're gonna want to bring other people into your scenes with their lures so you can get these tokens so you can do these things. There is a game mechanic happening here. And then the regular moves are just there. I feel weird about that. I feel like I'm missing something. Am I missing something that's supposed to be happening here? Not sure. If I'm not, if it's just like that, then it's just like that. But that feels weird to me. Like, there's nothing else that happens here. In other PBTA games, when a move is triggered, you usually roll for something. Maybe the BOB games don't have that might be part of the difference. But again, then in that case, why is this here? If it has no mechanical effect, then why is it called a move and set in the same side as these two that do have mechanical effect? This could just be taken off, not called a move anymore, but just examples of things your character can do. I don't know what I would name it. I'm kind of stuck on that one. Oh well, whatever. And that's it. We've got the first playbook, the Starstruck. Overall, pretty straightforward, very, very narrative focused, which is kind of the whole point of the game, right? It gives you the vibe, just tells you at a very basic level who your character is, which is, I think, part of the thing with the PBTA games. A PBTA playbook tells you who your character is, if I think is a better way of explaining that difference. This does a decent job of explaining who your character is. And what the things that they are likely to do, the things that make them weak, the things that make them strong. I have no complaints on the feel of the character, the vibes of the character. I'm just stuck on that bit with the moves. Again, why is it a move if it actually has no mechanical effect in the game? We don't roll. There are no, as far as I can tell, no dice in this game. But there is a game. There are mechanics. All right, let's compare that to the next to another one of the playbooks. We'll go over them quicker now. And just, it won't go over all the options, just the questions. but I will read the first intro bit. So let's see here. The Hedge. Mycology is a pretty underwhelming name for what you do. You live and breathe mushrooms. You know the names of insects, plants, and body parts better than you know the names of your friends. Your potions may not be the best in the academy, but they're certainly the flashiest and most unpredictable. You miss life as a hedge witch, the feeling of being revered and feared. But this academy seems very exciting too. Play to find out how magic and nature relate, whether you'll be able to prove hedge witches are just as good as city witches, what benefits and drawbacks a solitary life can have. Alright, so those are the vibes of the hedge witch. You are granola crunchy and have something to prove a little bit. You definitely sound like you're a little bit stuck up. Apparently you were revered before. I like that. Alright, so let's see. Choose a look or make something up, covered in leaves and twigs, or a mushroom-shaped hat, literally just a bunch of cloth draped over you. Choose 2 hedge witch specialties or make up your own. Examples are mushrooms, dowsing for water, animal ken, mixing potions. Choose one way in which you're having trouble adapting to academy life. Your rural slang makes it difficult for others to understand you, or you rarely socialize, or you don't understand etiquette and norms, and a few other examples. Choose 2 key relationships: the villagers I keep in touch with, my roommates, the groundskeeper who knows all the good mushroom hunting spots, the city witches. Alright. Choose a pet magical tool or make up your own. So it looks like everybody gets a pet or magical tool, at least at first glance. And these are ones that fit a hedge better, like a Venus flytrap in a jar. A mouse has memorized all your recipes. And stuff like a mushroom that is also a pillow. Okay, your lure is that when somebody acknowledges or celebrates your differences or reveres you as a hedge witch, they gain a token. So, like me. If you like me, you get points. Be nice to me. Say nice things about me, you get points. I kind of like that. Make your character fallible and relatable. Embody the contrast between city witches who live in apartments and hedge witches who live in swamps. Embrace solitude and intimacy. Questions to ask the rest of the group. How do you find me off-putting or strange? And how has being my friend caused you grief? Weak moves are messing up a potion or remedy, jealously guarding knowledge, ask why are you judging me, let your obsessions or bringing hurt or embarrass you. So that gives you that stuff. Or establish a previously unknown fact about plants, animals, and hedge magic. So these things give you points. Regular moves are suggestions. Brew a potion, go foraging, take action, cast a spell, etc., etc. Strong moves: gain the respect of or take revenge on a city witch. Make an astounding discovery, make a new friend, get out of harm's way, ask how can I make it up to you. Alright. So again, vibes, who your character is rather than what they can do. Magic has been in your family's bloodline for millennia, and this has earned you the respect, admiration, and envy of many witches. There is a massive, immaculately kept family tree of awesomely powerful witches, and at the very bottom of that tree is you. You've been given everything you could ever want, but you also bear the pressure of familial expectations, ancient traditions, and high-class propriety. Your every decision is scrutinized by your family, and at the academy you might find the perfect place to either let everyone know who's in charge or rebel against aristocratic witch society. Play to find out whether you'll accept or reject your aristocratic position, how you break the mold you've been cast into, whether you're respected or merely tolerated. Interesting stories we can tell with the Posh. That's a classic type of character in anime. Let's see, choose a look, make something, regal robes, designer clothes, tailor-made suit. You get a family signature inheritable spell. Stuff like command attention, clear or summon a storm, open a door, put someone to sleep, summon a magical self-driving carriage, cook a meal to perfection, leave a room or object spotless, part water. So a big kind of showy spells that you get to choose from here because it's your family signature spell. Familial obligations. You have the backing of your family, but that comes with responsibility. For example, not allowed to mingle with the rabble, or a chaperone hounding your every step. Then you get 2 key relationships like everybody else, from your roommates and your family, to the headmistress who fears your family, to the magical creatures in town that you owe a favor to, and more. Cool. Magical tools and objects. Letter opener that leaves the seal intact. Tricky. A jug that produces any liquid you want. Again, tricky. Self-writing quill. Top of the line broom. What's your lure? When someone asks you to leverage your connections, wealth, or status, they gain a token. Bring me into the scene and let me do the thing I'm good at, and you get rewarded. Solid. Questions for the others? How have I been condescending or hurtful towards you? Set up conflicts. And how have I impressed you? Weak moves are stuff like making a scene. This will give you tokens. Cut someone down with harsh words. Asking, why do you find me insufferable? Everyday moves, excelling at magic. Seeking help for the aristocracy. Feigning politeness. Asking, what do you need to acquire? Strong moves that'll cost you a token. Bringing adversaries together. Inciting fear. Refusing to be cowed or ordered around. Standing up for yourself. Casting a previously unrevealed spell, etc. Alright, so let's look at the next playbook. The Breaker. Magic's cool. It can start fires, cause explosions, shove some nag into a trans-dimensional locker, and much more. Above all, magic is fun. There is no end to the mayhem you cause when you're wielding your powers, and this academy is rife with opportunities for chaos and an audience to watch you excel at it. Alright, so the Chaos Monkey playbook. Play to find out how much trouble you can get away with causing, how to express yourself through magic, how to drop the act and allow yourself to be vulnerable. Choose a look. Torn robes, prompt clothes, 2 chaotic spells, or make up your own. So explosions, making something carnivorous, break in half, restrain movement, summon a foul smell, disguise yourself, make some noise. Okay, fun spells. This is feeling like the class that I would want to play on this one. Choose a problem you often encounter. Pushing friends away, you only want to fly your broomstick, you always cause collateral damage, your magic is unstable, you don't trust the other troublemakers at school. Okay. 2 key relationships as usual. Roommates, to the witch in charge of security, to your parents, to the people from town. Okay, these are a little bit more normal. Pet or magical tool. Infinite pocket sand! That's it. So, 10 out of 10 game done. Thank you so much for being here with the stream today. Fuck yeah. Favorite thing I've seen all day. Very angry badger who lives under your hat. No, sorry. Second favorite thing I've seen today. New favorite thing I've seen today. This playbook is fun. I like the things it offers you. Untraceable stink bombs, magical spray paint, self-propelled skateboard, master lockpick, bag full of slapstick props, all of that. Give me all of it. What is your lure? When somebody seeks the aid of your destructive, reckless, and illegal methods, they gain a token. When somebody finally admits that the solution here is explosions and fire, they get a token. And I get to do explosions and fire. Make your character fallible and relatable. Be vulnerable sometimes. Seek an audience for your antics. Questions for the others. What's the coolest thing you've seen me do? What's the one time I went overboard with a prank sound? Unlikely that was also just one time. Weak moves. Get caught doing something illegal or forbidden. Hurt a friend. Be shunned. Let your penchant for chaos hurt or embarrass you. Okay, cool. And then strong moves. I'm going to kind of skip. Yeah, regular moves just pull off a Frank. Fly recklessly, lie, cheat, or steal. Yeah, sure. Strong moves. Take the fall for a friend. Invade danger cunningly. Put on a show for the ages. Share the spotlight. Express your tender side. All right. Can I show you who I really am? I like that one. All right. The Senior. Next playbook. The Senior. You've earned the ire of your teachers, and now you're stuck with the first-year witches. You should be having fun as a second year, but now you have to guide the new arrivals. What could you possibly have to learn from people who can't even fly a broomstick without falling off the saddle? It's so unfair. What you did wasn't that bad, was it? You're sure you'll find some way to climb back up to your previous position, and maybe having a little gaggle of awestruck young witches to command won't be so unpleasant. Play to find out how you can use your position responsibly or otherwise, how to impress the first years, what you can learn from the young and inexperienced, how you can teach and learn at the same time, how you can keep the younger witches out of trouble, or help them cause it. All right, I kind of dig the Senior's vibe. Look or made something up, austere robes, flowing garments, a sailor suit. 5 spells from any of the other playbooks lists. Choose how your experience manifests in your spellcraft. You can cast in complete silence. You can greatly enhance your spell's effects. So one of these increases spell's duration, Block, counter, reflect other people's spells, grant your power to another temporarily. Ooh, this one's kind of your power gamer class or playbook if it's what you really want. Choose one thing from Senior Life you're missing out on and one you can help others to gain access to. Ooh, I like that. Choose one thing from Senior Life you're missing out on because you got held back a year, and one that you can help others gain access to because you're a little older. Advanced tutoring, wild parties, freedom to visit the town, scholarships and grants, locked ingredient cabinet. I like that. 2 key relationships, your second year friends, second year teachers, thesis advisor, recently graduated witches, the teacher you got in trouble with, etc. Fun. I like the vibe of it. Talking box, a book, a box of very severe magical makeup, small band of birds who can follow simple commands, tandem broomstick. Aw. All right, what's your lure? When somebody depends on your experience, knowledge, and school connections for help, they gain a token. Straightforward. I like it. I dig it. Questions asked to your left and the right. What cool, impressive thing did I do? What extremely uncool older kid thing did I do? Let's see. Weak moves, accidentally reveal a secret, throw your weight around, be left out, overreach, fail to be there for your friends, be resentful, let your seniority or desire to impress lead you to hurt or embarrassment. Regular, juggle your 2 lives, lead the group, take action. Strong moves, found a coven with another witch, command respect, get others out of trouble, let out someone else sees an opportunity, open a locked door. Okay. I like the vibe. I like the vibe of the Senior. Also, as a power gamer, yeah. The Sybil. Ooh, I love the art on her. Back home, in the secluded mountaintop temple you were raised in, you were at peace. You communed with the spirits, the stars, the threads of fate, the river of time, and the soul of the mountain. You swam through the weave on wings of precognition, subtly reading future events and drawing on a deeper understanding than most witches can even comprehend. Nothing so crass as casting a spell, right? Well, now you've been sent to study, to hone your other magical skills, and your biggest problems involve basic spells backfiring and the internet being out. Play to find out how your relationship to magic changes by being at school, how you draw on new knowledge to fuel your power, how you command admiration, awe, and shock. Let's see. So your look: robes and tunics, body covered in tattoos, pelts and furs, billowing cloak. Choose 2 ways you become a conduit of magic. Some might call these spells. Speaks to stone and branch, astral projection, telepathy, step through dreams, commune with spirits. All right, I see the vibe they're going for here with the Sybil. Choose the aspect of modern witch life you find baffling, confusing, and upsetting. Electronics, books, social cliques, bustle of urban life. Yeah, so you're kind of like a traditional... What's the word I'm looking for here? I can't put the vibe into words precisely, but I like it. I see what they're going for here. So fortune-telling bones, dowsing rods, ward-scribing inks, a hunting hawk that can see the invisible, like that one. Pocket-sized shrine. Okay, what's your lure? When somebody seeks your wisdom and your intimate connection with the weave, they gain a token. What's the most awe-inspiring feat of magic have you seen me do? What gift did you give me to welcome me into your group of friends? I like that one. That one's sweet. If you lose control of the weave, you're condescending and smug, you fail to understand something of modern life, you let your immense power or your absent-mindedness lead you to hurt or embarrassment. Regular moves, focus, channel, project, cast a spell, then press with your knowledge. Strong, dismissive with the regular moves, now that I know they have no game effect. Strong moves, change something irrevocably, surpass your limits, be a bridge, conduit, or gate, settle an argument decisively, explore, cast a previous reveal. Okay, cool. I like the vibes on this. Thanks so much for hanging out. For anybody watching these streams after, thanks so much for watching. You must be a true fan or just really have nothing better to do. Once I finish this, a much shorter and more direct review of this game, once I've actually finished going through it, that will be posted later, that I expect will get, maybe more views than a 2+ hour stream of me rambling. We'll see. Everything is wild out there. On that note, 2024 is truly the wildest of times. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you all tomorrow. Boop.